What if a single slab of stone, half a mile from the nearest settlement, could carry the weight of a lost civilization's secrets, whispering across the frozen night like an ancient echo that refuses to die? In the remote archipelago of Svalbard, where polar winds howl over jagged peaks and the sea freezes into black glass, a monolithic rock sits perched on a barren ridge, known to locals simply as the Svalbard Stone. Discovered by a Norwegian mining team in 1972, the stone measures roughly 9 meters in length, 3 meters wide, and towers over 5 meters high, its surface scarred by deep, intersecting grooves that no natural erosion can easily explain. Scientists who examined the formation noted that the patterns cut into the rock are not random. They form a series of concentric circles, spirals, and what appear to be deliberate straight lines, all intersecting at a single point near the stone's center. Some researchers argue these marks resemble astronomical alignments, pointing toward the midnight sun at the summer solstice and the polar night's darkest hour. Others have suggested a more terrestrial purpose, a primitive calendar, perhaps, or a ritualistic arena for an extinct Arctic people. Yet no known culture in the Arctic left behind stone monuments of such scale, and no written record mentions a great altar in these latitudes. The mystery deepens when you consider the stone's composition. Petrographic analysis reveals a type of basalt rarely found in Svalbard's geology. Its mineral fingerprint matches volcanic rock from the distant Kola Peninsula, over 1,000 kilometers to the east. How could a massive slab travel such a distance without leaving a trail of debris? Some geologists posit glacial transport during the last ice age, when ice sheets moved as slow, relentless rivers of rock and snow. But the stone's orientation, perfectly upright, balanced on a narrow ridge, defies the chaotic tumbling expected from a glacial erratic. It sits as if placed by deliberate hands, a sentinel watching the desolate landscape. Local folklore adds a darker layer. Sami hunters speak of the stone that sings, recalling a night when, under a violet aurora, the wind seemed to carry a low, mournful tone from the ridge, as if the rock itself were resonating. The tale grew, and soon the stone earned a reputation among sailors. Those who approached it at night reported a sudden, inexplicable drop in temperature, a feeling of being watched, and fleeting shadows that vanished when the lantern light flickered. Modern investigators have attempted to measure any acoustic properties, placing sensors around the stone during a blizzard. When the wind battered the ridge, the sensors recorded low-frequency vibrations that persisted long after the gusts ceased, an echo that seemed to linger within the stone's core. Some propose a natural resonance, yet the consistency and directionality of the vibrations suggest something more intentional, a design to capture and hold sound. To this day, the Svalbard stone remains untouched by formal excavation. The Norwegian authorities have declared the site a protected natural monument, citing its fragile Arctic environment. But scholars continue to debate. Is the stone a relic of an unknown prehistoric culture that once thrived far north of the tree line? Was it a ceremonial marker left by seafarers who navigated these icy waters centuries before the Vikings? Or is it a geological oddity, a massive basaltic erratic that, through a perfect alignment of wind, ice, and light, has been turned into a canvas for human imagination? The answers are buried beneath layers of ice and time, and the stone waits, silent and immovable, as the Arctic night stretches endlessly over it. Every gust that brushes its surface, every aurora that paints the sky, seems to ask the same question. What story does this ancient monolith hold, and why does it still echo, in the coldest corners of the world, the faintest whispers of a forgotten past? The desert stretches out like a silent, endless sea, its dunes shifting under a sky that seems to hold its breath. For centuries, traders whispered of a city swallowed by sand, a place called Ubar, the Atlantis of the sands. But there is a fragment of the legend that chills even the most hardened Bedouin, a night when the sun never rose over Ubar, and darkness lingered for days, as if the horizon itself had been torn open. According to the oral histories recorded by the British explorer Sir Wilfrid the Siger in the 1940, a caravan of frankincense merchants arrived at the oasis of Shisar, the last known outpost before the fabled city. The men were exhausted, their camels sagging, but their eyes widened when the sun, which had burned relentless across the Arabian plateau for weeks, suddenly slipped behind a black veil. The sky turned an unnatural violet, and a heavy, metallic scent filled the air, like the breath of an ancient furnace. The caravan's leader, a man named Hassan, ordered the camp to be secured, fearing a sandstorm, yet no wind rose, only a profound, suffocating stillness. For 3 days, the sun remained hidden. Shadows clung to the dunes, and the temperature fell to a chilling 2 degrees C, a temperature unheard of in the heart of the Rub al Khali. When the first tentative rays finally pierced the gloom, they illuminated a landscape transformed. The once gleaming walls of Ubar lay in ruins, half buried, their basalt stones blackened as if scorched by an unseen fire. The great palace that legend said once housed the queen of the incense trade was reduced to a twisted heap of collapsed arches, and the intricate irrigation channels that fed the city's gardens were clogged with a fine, ash-like powder. Archaeologists who later uncovered the site at Shisar, now identified with the lost city of Ubar, found a layer of volcanic glass, obsidian tephra, deep within the sand, a material that does not occur naturally in the Arabian Peninsula. Some scholars propose a meteor impact, yet no crater has ever been detected nearby. Others suggest a massive underground fire, perhaps ignited by a sudden release of natural gas trapped beneath the oasis, which could have produced a temporary darkness akin to a volcanic winter. What remains certain is that the people who lived there vanished without a trace, their trade routes abruptly severed, their stories reduced to a single, haunting line. When the sun never rose, the city fell. The desert keeps its secrets close, and the darkness that fell over Ubar still haunts the dunes, a reminder that even the most radiant civilizations can be snuffed out in an instant, leaving only the echo of a night that never ended. What if the most barren continent on Earth, a place where the wind screams over endless white, holds a message that no living soul can decipher? In 1969, during a routine Soviet meteorological survey, a team of researchers set up a temporary station near the coastal ridge of Queen Maud Land. They were there to measure temperature gradients and wind speeds, not to stumble upon a secret older than any civilization. Yet, after a fierce katabatic storm had carved fresh scars into the ancient ice, the men discovered a shallow, perfectly straight trench etched into the surface, its edges crisp, as if a blade had sliced through the frozen crystal just minutes before. Inside the trench lay a series of characters, each about the size of a human palm, cut deeply into the ice with a precision that suggested tools far more sophisticated than any simple pick. The symbols bore no resemblance to any known alphabet, not Cyrillic, not Latin, not even the runic scripts of the Norse. They were angular, interlocking, some resembling twisted spirals, others forming jagged hooks that seemed to pulse with a faint, almost imperceptible glow when the weak Antarctic sunlight hit them at a low angle. Scientists who examined the markings were baffled. The Institute of Arctic and Antarctic Research dispatched a team of linguists, geologists, and cryptographers. Their first hypothesis was that the script might be a natural fracture pattern, a random alignment of stress lines within the ice. Yet the uniform depth, consistent spacing, and deliberate curvature of each character dismissed chance. Another theory suggested a forgotten expedition, perhaps a lost crew from the early 20th century whaling era, had left a warning. But no records exist of any vessels reaching that precise latitude, and the style bore no similarity to maritime markings of the time. The most unsettling possibility, voiced by a handful of fringe researchers, is that the inscription predates known human presence on Antarctica. Some argue that the ice sheet, though seemingly eternal, has been flowing for millions of years, and that ancient peoples could have once inhabited a far warmer continent that later migrated south as the planet cooled. If true, this script could be the last echo of a civilization erased long before any written record survived elsewhere. Attempts to photograph the glyphs with ultraviolet and infrared imaging revealed faint, layered depressions beneath the surface, indicating that the carving might have been repeated over centuries, each generation sharpening the same symbols. Yet every scan also showed a subtle anomaly, a low-frequency vibration resonating within the ice when the markings are exposed to certain acoustic frequencies. The phenomenon has never been reproduced in a laboratory, and it remains a chilling reminder that the frozen desert may be responding to something we cannot yet comprehend. To this day, the trench lies sealed beneath a protective dome, a silent sentinel watching over an enigma that refuses to yield its meaning. Researchers continue to debate, but the truth remains hidden, etched in ice, waiting for a mind capable of reading a language that may never have been meant for us. The question lingers like the cold wind itself. Who, or what, carved those unreadable symbols into the heart of Antarctica, and why? Deep in the heart of the Pacific Northwest, where ancient cedars cling to cliffs like silent sentinels, lies a place that locals call the Devil's Kettle. At first glance, it is just another plunge pool, a swirling vortex where the cold, frothy waters of the Brule River tumble over a basaltic ledge and disappear into a yawning hole. But the river does not reappear downstream. It vanishes into the earth, and no one has ever witnessed its return. For generations, the mystery has haunted the people who live along the river's banks, and every year a new wave of curious hikers, scientists, and thrill-seekers gathers at the edge, hoping to catch a glimpse of what lies beneath. The hole itself is roughly 15 feet across, its rim slick with algae and the echo of countless splashes. When the river pours in, it creates a deafening roar, a white-capped waterfall that seems to gulp the water whole. Early explorers tried to lower ropes and nets, but each time the current snapped their lines as if an unseen force were protecting the abyss. In the 1970s, a team of hydrologists installed dye tracers and temperature sensors upstream, yet the instruments never emerged, and the dye was never detected downstream. The same pattern repeated when a group of speleologists descended a narrow shaft they believed might connect to an underground cavern. They reported a sudden, inexplicable drop in barometric pressure, followed by a thick, mineral-laden fog that filled their lantern-lit tunnel, obscuring the path and forcing a retreat. What could swallow an entire river and keep its water from resurfacing? Some scientists propose a massive subterranean limestone cavern that channels the flow into a hidden aquifer, yet geological surveys have found no such void. Others point to the presence of a basaltic lava tube, collapsed centuries ago, forming a sealed pocket that traps the water. Indigenous stories speak of a spirit mouth, a portal to the underworld that demands offerings of water and fire. The legend tells of a night when a thunderstorm flooded the river, yet the kettle glowed with an eerie, phosphorescent light, as if the void itself were alive. Modern technology offers more clues, but also deeper enigmas. In 2016, a team of drone operators captured infrared images of the surface, revealing a faint thermal anomaly directly above the kettle, a subtle heat signature that persisted long after the water had ceased its roar. Could this be geothermal activity, a hidden vent releasing warm water from deep within the earth? Or is it a mere illusion, a trick of the camera's sensors? No one knows. The Devil's Kettle remains a bottomless lake in the eyes of those who have stood at its edge, feeling the spray on their faces and hearing the river's mournful sigh as it is swallowed whole. It is a reminder that even in a world mapped and measured, some places still refuse to surrender their secrets. The question lingers, like the mist that rises each dawn. What darkness lies beneath the Devil's Kettle, waiting to claim the next drop of water that dares to fall? What if a device forged over 3,000 years ago could point not north, but toward a secret that has never been uncovered? Deep in the windswept dunes of the Arabian Peninsula, archaeologists uncovered a small, perfectly rounded bronze disc, its surface etched with a single, delicate arrow. At first glance, it resembled a simple ornamental token, yet its alignment and the faint magnetic residue left on its edge suggested something far more enigmatic: a compass, but not of the kind that guides travelers toward the magnetic poles. The disc was discovered within the burial chamber of a high-status individual, a warrior priest whose grave contained swords, amber beads, and fragments of lapis lazuli. The arrow, unlike any decorative motif of the period, was meticulously centered and oriented at an angle that, when measured against the chamber's walls, pointed toward a distant, unmapped region of the desert. Researchers who later performed a magnetometric analysis detected a minute, yet consistent, polarity gradient across the bronze, indicating that the metal had been magnetized long before it was ever buried. Some scholars propose that the object functioned as an early lodestone, harnessed by ancient metallurgists who understood the subtle pull of Earth's invisible forces. If this is true, it would push the known history of navigation back by millennia, predating the Chinese needle compasses by over 1,000 years. Yet the purpose of the arrow remains a mystery. Did it guide nomadic tribes across the empty sands, pointing toward a sacred oasis lost to time? Or was it a ceremonial instrument, used in rites that invoked the unseen currents of the world, a symbol of a society that could feel the planet's hidden heartbeat? One theory suggests the disc was a ritual directional talisman, meant to align the bearer with a cosmic axis, a concept echoed in other Bronze Age mythologies that speak of a world tree or a central pillar connecting earth and sky. The arrow's orientation aligns almost perfectly with the location of the now vanished al-Biad settlement, a place mentioned only in a handful of fragmented cuneiform tablets, describing a city where the sun never sets. Could the compass have been a map, a physical cue pointing the dead toward their forgotten home? Others argue for a more mundane explanation. The bronze could have been a simple ornamental disc that, over centuries, acquired a weak magnetic signature through corrosion, creating the illusion of intentional design. Still, the precision of the engraving, the consistent angle across multiple similar finds in the region, and the presence of rare meteoritic iron fragments in the burial cache all point toward a purposeful creation. The truth lies buried beneath the shifting dunes, waiting for a new generation of explorers to trace that ancient arrow's line across the sand. As we stand at the edge of what we know, the bronze disc remains a silent invitation, an ancient compass pointing not toward a destination, but toward a question that still haunts the sands. What did our ancestors truly understand about the forces that move the world, and why did they feel compelled to capture that knowledge in a piece of metal that points to nothing, yet perhaps to everything? The stone walls of the great Temple of Baalbek have stood for millennia, a silent monolith rising from the Lebanese hills like a forgotten god's altar. Yet, when the sun sinks behind the jagged silhouettes of the surrounding cedar forests, locals speak of a different kind of worship, one that does not belong to any known priesthood. What secrets do those massive limestone blocks whisper when night cloaks the valley? Baalbek, known in antiquity as Heliopolis, was once the crown jewel of the Roman Empire's eastern provinces. Its colossal trilithon, 3 monolithic stones each weighing over 800 tons, still defy modern engineering, and the precise methods used to quarry and erect them remain a puzzle. But the mystery deepens far beyond sheer weight. In the early 1930s, a French archaeologist named René Maynard recorded an uncanny phenomenon. At precisely midnight, a low, resonant hum seemed to emanate from the inner sanctum, reverberating through the stone corridors like the breath of an ancient beast. Some workers claimed the sound was accompanied by a faint, rhythmic tapping, as if unseen hands were striking the very walls. One theory suggests that the temple was built over an older, pre-Roman structure whose purpose has been erased from history. The alignment of the main axis with the winter solstice, sunrise hints at an astronomical function, yet the inner chambers are oriented toward a point in the sky where no star or planet ever rises. Could this be a doorway to a celestial event now lost to us, or a lingering echo of a ritual long abandoned? Local folklore adds another layer. Shepherds from nearby villages tell of a pale figure cloaked in white, moving silently among the ruined columns, vanishing when approached. They call it the Keeper of the Stones, a spirit said to guard the temple's hidden knowledge. Some elders believe the hum is the keeper's chant, a lament for a civilization that vanished without a trace. Scientific explanations have been offered: acoustic resonance caused by wind funneling through the temple's hollowed arches, or tectonic stress releasing low-frequency vibrations through the limestone. Yet recordings made by a team of geophysicists in 2017 captured frequencies that did not match any known natural source, persisting even on windless nights. The enigma of Baalbek is not merely a question of how its builders moved stone, but why the very air within its chambers seems alive, as if the building itself remembers a purpose beyond human comprehension. As the night deepens and the wind sighs through the broken arches, the whispers grow louder, inviting us to ask, what ancient voice is still calling from the forgotten temple, and what will answer it when the stones finally speak? The night over the Siberian taiga is a black ocean, its waves of wind howling through the skeletal pines, and somewhere far below, the earth trembles with a secret that has been whispered by the locals for centuries. They speak of a river that does not obey the laws of gravity, a scarlet ribbon of water that climbs the sheer cliffs of the Kolyma Basin, defying every principle taught in the textbooks of physics. How can a river run uphill? Why does its water glow the color of fresh blood, even in the dead of winter when the world around it is locked in ice? The phenomenon was first recorded in 1965 by a Soviet geologist, Ivan Petrov, who was mapping the remote region of the Upper Kolyma. He described a narrow gorge where, after a thunderous cascade, the water seemed to halt, gather, and then surge back up the rock face, forming a thin, crimson veil that clung to the stone like a living organism. Petrov's notes speak of an unmistakable metallic scent and a temperature that rose several degrees above the surrounding air, as if the river itself exhaled warmth. Scientists have offered several hypotheses, each more unsettling than the last. One school suggests a rare geological formation, a massive deposit of iron oxide beneath the riverbed, leaching into the water and turning it a deep rust red, while also creating a magnetic field strong enough to alter the flow. Yet magnetism alone cannot pull water uphill. The force would have to be continuous and precisely directed, a scenario no known natural magnet can produce. Another theory points to the presence of underground methane pockets. As the water contacts these trapped gases, a vigorous upwelling could force the liquid to surge against gravity, while the dissolved iron compounds give the water its blood hue. This would also explain the sudden rise in temperature, as the exothermic reaction between methane and iron releases heat. However, no seismic surveys have detected the necessary gas reservoirs in the immediate area. Local folklore adds a darker layer to the mystery. The Evenki hunters call the river Karak's Vein, believing it to be the lifeblood of a buried spirit that once ruled the land. They tell of ancient shamanic rites performed on the riverbank, where blood was offered to appease the entity, ensuring that the river would not flood the village. Some elders claim that when the river runs uphill, the spirit is angry, its fury manifesting as the impossible flow. Modern expeditions equipped with drones and infrared cameras have captured stunning footage. The crimson stream glistening under moonlight, climbing the cliff in a slow, relentless march. Thermal imaging shows a narrow plume of heat trailing the water, confirming the temperature anomaly. Yet when researchers attempted to sample the water, they found it impossibly clean, devoid of the iron particles that should have given it such a color. The water tasted metallic, but chemical analysis returned inconclusive results, as if the river itself was protecting its secret. The blood-red river of Siberia remains an enigma, a scarlet scar on the frozen heart of the continent. Whether it is a unique convergence of geology, chemistry, and hidden gases, or a manifestation of something far beyond our current understanding, the river continues its uphill pilgrimage, daring anyone who watches to question the very foundations of reality. And as the wind whistles through the trees, one cannot help but wonder, is the river a natural marvel or a silent warning from the deep, ancient earth that some mysteries are meant to flow forever upward, never to be fully grasped? What secrets could a gleaming circle of pure gold hold when it lies hidden for centuries beneath the earth, untouched by the hands of modern explorers? The answer begins in the highlands of Peru, where a remote burial mound, known to the locals as the Sleeping Hill, was first disturbed by a team of archaeologists in the late 1990s. The mound, a massive earthen structure dating to the late Intermediate period, had long been presumed to contain the remains of elite warriors or priests, but none could have imagined the marvel they would uncover beneath a layer of compacted adobe. When the earth finally gave way, the workers revealed a sealed stone chamber, its walls lined with hand-carved basalt blocks, each etched with geometric patterns that echo the motifs of the enigmatic Nazca lines. In the center of the room, atop a polished obsidian slab, lay a solitary object. A perfect, thin disk of gold, its surface flawless, its edges beveled with a precision that rivals modern minting techniques. The disk measured just over 12 centimeters in diameter, yet its weight was enough to make the air in the chamber feel heavier, as if the metal itself exhaled a faint, ancient pressure. No comparable artifact has ever been recorded from any pre-Columbian culture. Gold was certainly prized by the Andean peoples, but it was normally fashioned into jewelry, ceremonial vessels, or the famed tumbaga alloys that softened the metal for easier casting. A solitary, perfectly round disc, no inscription, no iconography, defies the conventional narrative. Some scholars argue it could be a ceremonial sun mirror, intended to focus sunlight onto a specific point within the tomb, perhaps to ignite a ritual fire or to illuminate a hidden passage. Others suggest it may have functioned as a status token, a symbol of an elite lineage that claimed descent from the sun itself, a concept deeply woven into Andean cosmology. The mystery deepens when the burial goods surrounding the disc are examined. Alongside the golden circle lay fragments of a blackened textile, a set of intricately woven cords, and a broken obsidian blade, all bearing signs of deliberate, ritualistic placement. Radiocarbon dating of the organic material places the tomb's construction between 1150 and 1300 CE, a period of intense political fragmentation in the region, when small chiefdoms vied for power and often invoked celestial deities to legitimize their rule. Even the soil itself tells a story. Microscopic analysis revealed trace amounts of copper and silver alloyed with the gold, suggesting the disk was not pure but a sophisticated blend, perhaps intended to alter its color or reflectivity. Yet the alloy's composition does not match any known metallurgical recipes from the Andes, leading some researchers to propose an external influence, perhaps a lost trade network that reached far beyond the Amazon basin, bringing unknown techniques into the highlands. What remains unanswerable, however, is the purpose behind the disk's burial. The chamber was sealed with a massive stone slab that bore a single shallow depression matching the disk's exact dimensions, as if the metal had been placed there to fill a void, a cosmic key that completes the tomb's design. When the slab was lifted, the air inside seemed colder, and a faint metallic scent lingered, a reminder that this object, though inert, once vibrated with meaning for people whose language has long since faded into silence. To this day, the golden disk sits in a climate-controlled vault in Lima, its surface still unmarred by time, its secrets locked within the alloy's microstructure. Scholars continue to debate, and the public remains captivated by the image of a flawless golden circle, an eternal sun caught in a tomb, waiting for the moment when its purpose will finally be illuminated. Until then, the disk remains a silent testament to a civilization that could shape metal with a mastery that still eludes us, a reminder that the past still holds mysteries capable of casting a cold, golden light on the darkness of our own ignorance. What if an entire island could disappear behind a wall of white, not for minutes, but for decades, leaving sailors to whisper that the sea itself has learned to breathe? The Isle of Sodor, a modest speck in the Irish Sea, has been swallowed by an endless fog that seems to have a mind of its own. For centuries, fishermen from the nearby coast of North Wales reported that on certain mornings the horizon would melt into a featureless veil, and the island, once a bustling hub of fishing villages and stone cottages, would simply vanish from sight. No storm, no darkness, just a thick, rolling shroud that clung to the land like a living organism. The first recorded encounter dates back to a 1623 logbook belonging to Captain Ewan MacLeod, who noted that the island rose like a phantom from the mist, only to dissolve again as if the sea were exhaling. Over the next 200 years, the phenomenon grew more erratic. In 1794, a convoy of merchant ships anchored off the coast, only to find their bearings thrown into chaos as the fog rolled inland, muffling every sound. The locals spoke of a breathing mist that would close in at night, sealing the island in a cold, damp cocoon for days on end. Animals vanished, crops withered, and the few who dared to remain inside the fog described an eerie silence broken only by low, humming tones that seemed to emanate from the very air. Scientists who have dared to study the phenomenon admit they have no satisfactory explanation. Some suggest a unique combination of temperature inversion, high humidity, and the surrounding sea currents could trap moisture indefinitely, creating a self-sustaining cloud. Others point to the island's unusual geology, a basaltic substratum rich in volcanic glass that might release microscopic particles, acting as nuclei for perpetual condensation. One fringe theory, whispered among marine folklore scholars, proposes that the fog is a lingering echo of a forgotten battle between ancient peoples, a ritual that bound the island's spirit to the mist. Modern instruments have recorded the fog's density, reaching over 90% visibility reduction, persisting for weeks without any wind to disperse it. Satellite images occasionally capture a faint, dark outline where Sodor should be, but the shape is indistinguishable from the surrounding sea. When a research vessel attempted to map the area in 2015, its sonar reflected off an unseen barrier, as if the fog were a solid wall of water. The crew reported a sudden drop in temperature, a palpable pressure change, and a sensation of being watched. To this day, the Isle of Sodor remains a place of unanswered questions, a silent sentinel cloaked in perpetual white. Its fields lie fallow, its churches stand empty, and the lighthouse that once guided ships now flickers only in old photographs. The endless fog does not merely hide the land, it seems to consume memory itself, erasing Sodor from maps and minds alike. And as the mist continues its slow, inexorable crawl across the sea, one can only wonder, is the island truly gone, or does it simply wait, shrouded, for the day when the fog finally exhales? What if a stone could walk on its own, slipping silently through the night while the world slept? In the remote highlands of southern Japan, near the quiet village of Iwate, a single boulder has baffled monks, farmers, and scientists for centuries. Known locally as the Cage Ishi, or Shadow Stone, its legend began in the Edo period, when a wandering monk recorded that the stone would be found at the foot of a shrine each morning, only to disappear from the altar by dusk, leaving no footprints, no disturbed earth, nothing but a faint scent of damp moss. The first written account appears in the Diary of Matsumoto Shiro, a 1723 pilgrim who described waking to find the stone perched atop a cedar, its surface glistening with dew that had never formed on the surrounding leaves. He wrote, "It seems the stone has a will of its own, a quiet intent to wander." Over the next 200 years, villagers reported similar movements. Sometimes the stone would be found on a distant path, half a kilometer away, sometimes nestled in a riverbed, its surface smoothed by water it should never have touched. Yet, whenever a curious onlooker tried to guard it, the stone would remain perfectly still, as if aware of being watched. Modern investigators have attempted to explain the phenomenon. Some suggest a rare geological process, slow creep along a hidden fault line, a subtle shift of the earth that could nudge a massive rock over decades. Others propose a natural magnetic anomaly. The stone, rich in magnetite, might respond to the Earth's fluctuating magnetic field, rolling ever so slightly during quiet nights when human activity is minimal. A more mystical interpretation comes from local Shinto priests, who claim the stone is a kami, a spirit of the mountain, moving to protect the village from unseen forces. Scientific measurements taken in 2019 revealed minute vibrations in the ground surrounding the stone, but no conclusive pattern. Infrared cameras captured faint glimmers of movement at 2:13 a.m., yet the footage was too grainy to determine whether it was the stone itself or a trick of light. The mystery deepens with the discovery of a series of ancient petroglyphs nearby, depicting a stone figure with legs, surrounded by spirals that some researchers interpret as a map of the stone's nightly routes. So the question lingers, as the wind whispers through the pines. Is the Cage Ishi a trick of physics, a clever illusion, or a living reminder that the world still holds corners untouched by human logic? As night falls and the village lights dim, the stone sits silently, waiting for the darkness to claim it once more, leaving us to wonder whether some stones are destined to move only when no one is watching. The stone corridors of the Paris catacombs have whispered their secrets for centuries, but it is not the chill of the underground that unsettles the brave who descend. It is the unmistakable sound of human voices echoing from the very walls themselves. Imagine stepping into a labyrinth of bone-lined tunnels, the air heavy with the scent of damp earth and centuries of decay, and suddenly hearing a faint murmur, as if a group of mourners were gathered just beyond the reach of your flashlight. The phenomenon, recorded by dozens of explorers, researchers, and even municipal workers, defies any simple explanation. The first documented account dates back to 1911, when a group of students from the École Polytechnique entered the ossuary for a daring nighttime excursion. As they navigated the dimly lit passages, a soft chant rose from the limestone, repeating an ancient Latin prayer, asterisk in pace, Domine in pace, asterisk, in peace, Lord, in peace. The students, convinced it was a trick of acoustics, fled, but the words lingered in their minds long after they emerged into the streetlight. Since then, the reports have multiplied. In 1975, a maintenance crew installing new lighting heard a sudden chorus of crying children, their plaintive wails reverberating off the stacked skulls. The crew's leader, a seasoned veteran of the catacomb system, swore he felt a cold hand brush his shoulder before the sounds abruptly ceased. In 2003, a lone speleologist equipped with a high-sensitivity audio recorder captured a series of disembodied murmurs that, when played back, revealed snippets of 19th-century French. Asterisk, il faut que je parte, asterisk, I must leave. The recorder showed no external interference, and the signal appeared to emanate from the very fissures between the bones. Scientists have proposed several theories. Some suggest the catacombs act as a gigantic resonant chamber, amplifying distant noises from the city above. A subway line, a passing tram, even the murmurs of the living above ground, filtering them through the porous limestone and creating the illusion of voices within the walls. Others argue that the unique geometry of the tunnels produces standing waves that can turn random vibrations into recognizable speech, a phenomenon known as pareidolia. Yet these explanations falter when the words spoken are unmistakably archaic, spoken in languages no longer heard in the streets of modern Paris. A more unsettling hypothesis points to the very purpose of the catacombs. a mass burial site for millions of victims of the French Revolution, the 19th century cholera epidemics, and the world wars. Could the restless spirits of those interred be reaching out across time, using the stone as a conduit? Folklore speaks of less revenants the wandering dead, who are said to roam the ossuary at night, seeking acknowledgement of their forgotten lives. The voices, then, might be not random noise, but a mournful plea for remembrance. No matter the cause, the phenomenon persists. In 2021, a group of urban explorers set up a 24-hour live stream from the deepest accessible chamber. As the clock ticked past midnight, a low, rhythmic chant filled the feed, sending shivers through viewers worldwide. The audio, captured in crystal clarity, revealed a pattern of syllables that matched no known language, leaving linguists baffled and the audience with a lingering dread. The catacombs of Paris remain a silent tomb, yet they speak to those who dare to listen. Whether the voices are the echo of history, an acoustic illusion, or something far darker, they remind us that beneath the bustling streets of the City of Light lies a maze where the past refuses to stay buried. And as we turn off our flashlights and retreat to the surface, one question remains unanswered. Whose words are we truly hearing, and what will they demand if we finally choose to listen? The wind howls across the endless sea of ochre sand, each grain whispering a story older than any civilization we know. Yet on a night in August 1974, a solitary traveler named Michael Andrews set out across the Namib's moonlit dunes, his footprints the only proof that a human had dared to tread this forbidden stretch. By dawn, the desert revealed a chilling paradox: a perfect line of footprints, each shallow yet distinct, stretched for more than a kilometer, only to disappear at a single point where the sand itself seemed to swallow the evidence without a trace. What makes this mystery so unnerving is not merely the sudden loss of the prints, but the way the surrounding sand remains undisturbed. The wind, a constant sculptor of this landscape, leaves dunes in perpetual motion, yet it does not erase a single footfall in the span of minutes. Scientists who later examined the site reported that the sand particles at the disappearance point were unusually compacted, as if something heavy had pressed down and then vanished, leaving the surface smooth and unmarked. Some geologists propose a localized micro-seismic tremor that could have caused a brief, almost imperceptible collapse of the sand's surface layer, collapsing the prints like a sandglass turned upside down. Local Himba elders, however, speak of a different, older narrative. They tell of the Malaika, spirits that guard the desert's secrets, appearing as shimmering mirages that draw travelers deeper into the dunes. According to their oral tradition, those who step beyond a certain line are claimed by the desert itself, their footsteps erased as a warning to the living. While this sounds like myth, the consistency of the accounts, repeated over generations, adds a layer of cultural mystery that science alone cannot dismiss. One theory suggests a rare meteorological phenomenon known as a dust devil vortex. These short-lived, tornado-like columns can create a sudden vacuum, pulling sand upward and then depositing it elsewhere. If a particularly strong vortex passed precisely over the disappearance point, it could have lifted the sand containing the footprints, scattering it downwind and leaving an immaculate surface behind. Yet, no witnesses reported any whirling columns that night, and the desert's temperature profile that evening shows no extreme fluctuations that typically precede such events. Even modern attempts to replicate the conditions have failed. Researchers placed weighted boots in a controlled dune environment, recorded wind speed, and triggered artificial dust devils. The footprints either remained visible or were completely obliterated, but never in the clean, surgical manner observed on that Namib night. The mystery deepens when satellite imagery from the era, though low resolution, shows a faint, dark line matching the footprint path. Yet the end point is a perfect void, a pixel of emptiness where no sand pattern exists at all. So the question remains, what invisible hand could erase a human trace without disturbing the surrounding dunes, without wind, without water, without any detectable force? Is it a forgotten geological quirk, an atmospheric trick, or perhaps a reminder that some places on Earth guard their secrets with a silence deeper than any sound? The desert keeps its answer buried beneath the dunes, and every grain that shifts carries a whisper of the unknown, waiting for the next wanderer to stumble upon the same line of vanished footsteps. What lies at the heart of the world's most unexplained circle? The question has haunted travelers, scholars, and night watchers for centuries, and the answer remains shrouded in a veil of silence that feels as thick as the mist that rolls over the ancient stones each dawn. At the edge of the Sahara, Where the desert meets the endless sky, a perfect ring of monoliths rises from the sand like the bones of a long-dead giant. Known to the locals as the Circle of the Forgotten, the formation consists of 12 upright stones, each weighing several tons, set with a precision that would challenge even today's most advanced engineers. Their surfaces are smooth, unweathered, and bear faint, weather-eroded markings that resemble an unknown script no language scholars have been able to decipher, not even the most exhaustive comparisons with known ancient alphabets. The first recorded sighting comes from a 9th-century Arab caravan journal, describing a halo of stone that hums when the wind passes through its heart. Modern measurements confirm a subtle acoustic phenomenon. When the wind sweeps between the stones at a certain angle, a low, resonant tone is produced, a sound that some say mimics a human sigh. Excavations have revealed a shallow pit at the center, lined with basalt and filled with a compacted layer of red ochre mixed with crushed quartz. Radiocarbon dating of organic remnants in the pit places the construction somewhere between 3000 and 2500 BCE, aligning it with the rise of early Nubian cultures. Yet no artifacts or cultural markers link it definitively to any known civilization. Satellite imagery shows that the circle is positioned precisely at the intersection of two ancient ley lines, imaginary alignments that many cultures believe to channel Earth's hidden energies. During the equinoxes, the sunrise penetrates the gap between two opposite stones, casting a narrow beam of light that illuminates the ochre-filled pit for exactly 12 seconds before disappearing. Some researchers argue this is a calendrical device, while others, citing the lack of any accompanying markings, suggest a ritual purpose, perhaps a portal, a beacon, or a warning. Local Bedouin shepherds speak in hushed tones of a cold draft that rises from the center at night, carrying with it the faint scent of frankincense, even though no incense has been placed there for millennia. Those who have dared to sit within the circle report vivid dreams of a vast underground chamber filled with a pulsating amber glow, as if the stones are guarding a hidden heart that beats in rhythm with the earth itself. No definitive explanation has survived the ages. Some propose that the circle is an astronomical observatory, its stones marking the heliacal rising of Sirius. Others suggest it was a burial site for a forgotten priesthood, its acoustics designed to echo chants into the void. The most unsettling theory, whispered among fringe archaeologists, posits that the circle was built atop a natural magnetic anomaly, a planetary node that once attracted travelers from distant lands, guiding them to a place where the veil between worlds thins. Whatever the truth, the Circle of the Forgotten remains an enigma, a perfect ring of stone that continues to pulse with unanswered questions. As the sun sinks behind the dunes and the desert air cools, the stones stand silent, inviting any brave enough to step within to listen, to the wind, the whispers of the past, and perhaps to the faint, lingering heartbeat of something far older than humanity itself.